I was busy in traffic. I got Right Honorable with me this week,
Hello, hello.
and I left Kills Bob and Uriah unmuted, so they might talk too. Yay.
Yep.
So, this week has been interesting. So, obviously, the newest news is the Immortals has played, what do we want to say? Hopscotch and made their way down to the Hollywood sign and never left.
They just
So,
got there. They never left in the first place. That's...
good point. They just got there.
This is the first time they joined Hollywood.
Well, I was going for something like, they didn't go back to Oasis like they should have, but yes, that would be because they formally joined Hollywood. Yes, yes, that occurred a few hours ago, I think. Right? Update time.
It was about like 2-3 hours ago.
Okay, so the Immortals joined Hollywood. I mean, I don't want to say basically abandoning all their allies, but
I will
basically
say
abandoning
they
all their
abandoned
allies.
all their allies, though.
Including Dark Brotherhood, Federation, the other ones.
UPN.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry, UPN. Don't hate me. Um, that they have been working with for literally years. And within a few days have just cut ties and joined Hollywood. And this is on the forefront of the the fighting pacifists.
You mean on the coattails of?
Whatever.
Zaz, I'm gonna have to host this show for you. I swear to God.
This is the whatever right after TFP
Let the train happen. Train wreck will happen.
decided that screw Big Boy FA, they're gonna join the micro block. They said they had it, it's done. FA is hard. They're going for the Johnsons. And with the greatest political stunt ever, they signed the most beloved alliance of all, Camelot. So,
Yeah, it's all those misclicks.
Yeah.
Can't forget the misclicks.
This sort of goes to show that, as you know, that being a micro is a mentality. Like, I don't mean to insult the hardworking people at TFP, but this is a play that, let's say, you'd expect from a below number 30 alliance, not a top 10.
I'm sorry.
Especially with how I have heard this went down with their allies. It's a move that you would expect out of an alliance that truly does not know what the hell they're doing. And, you know, while I'm not inside the minds of TFP's government, I probably can say that they don't know what they're doing at this point.
It's actually sad, a little bit. It's going to be a rough one to dig themselves out of politically later because once the spheres kind of solidify, they're kind of stuck where they are for quite a while. And there will be no kind of turning back for them. And I think they're kind of be stuck with the new grouping, we'll call it, of
Camelot, what used to be Pantheon, and God knows who else.
yeah, I think WTF's in this sphere. I think they have that going for them. Right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
maybe. I do not. I have not kept up on my Johnson's lore.
What do you I mean, come on, Johnson has been like proven to be the most powerful steer of the game. You should be able to recite every member of each alliance. So, I mean,
I have
so
failed in my role as leader of TCW then.
yes, it's time for like, oh God, no.
I was about to say, I know how much you hate elections, Zaz.
Uh, now, when you this is mainly because they allowed a 4-month nation to take over and make ginormous FA decisions.
Well, here's the thing. Even if you appoint a 4-month-old nation to be your head of FA, there has to, you don't sign treaty. That person does not sign treaties on their own. It has to be the whole of government that sticks their name on it, and clearly there has been a failure of government.
I actually got another. I can't be sure. Voss might be listening, might not. I got the impression when people were talking that he pretty much had unilateral power to sign whatever he wanted to sign, but there was points in the timeline where people could have stopped him, but they just chose not to stop him. If that makes sense.
Yeah. If that's how the government is structured, I genuinely wonder how they made it this far. Because it seems that that's a good recipe of having no direction overall. If you have the head of econ being able to make econ decisions solo, the head of FA being able to make head of FA decisions solo, it does seem like a recipe for a government that's ready to pull itself apart at any moment. Like most governments, the high government has a lot of power, on its own, but there has to be a direction set by leadership.
Right.
Though I think I think the chat has a point where I think everyone has taken their shot at TFP.
I need my chance to shoot at TFP. Okay, bear with me. I'll shoot at TI in a minute.
I was about to say, that's sort of the more interesting play. Um, Not exactly in because the last time while we're taking shots, the last time I was on this show, I was on with Ti, as you remember,
Hmm.
and I remember quite distinctly about how he was a big fan of doing, more independence and smaller spheres, and here we are, less than a month later, talking about um, how they joined Hollywood. And, I'm not saying that it's hypocrisy, but you get the impression that they were not entirely being
I don't know
straight
if he was
shooters.
lying, not being straight shooters, or if he kind of tucked his tail between his legs and ran. I
Well, it's
mean,
hypocrisy regardless. Whether they mean it as a lie, it's in the form of a lie or just a cowardly decision or whatever it may be. It's still hypocrisy.
that is true. It's difficult. It's weird though. By the way, if anybody in chat has a graph on the new tiering, can you drop that in the chat? I actually do not have one on hand. I meant to grab one before the show. Um, so yeah, it really well, it's weird because we called it the night before. I mean, we ran through their options and we're like, I am 99% sure this is what's about to happen. And I'm like, it'll be horrible if it does. The
Yeah,
only
that
thing that could have been worse is if they brought the rest of Oasis with them. But luckily, I don't think TKR would have even accepted that situation. What specifies a mini sphere?
I think I know me and Zaz and I think Uriah was there discussed this, and I think in terms of a de facto, in terms of the facts on the ground, mini spheres are dead.
I would agree. There
It
is no. Here's the problem. Minispheres is basically you got to rely on people's willingness to lose completely, and over and over and over again, right? So, because what it's going to end up happening if you don't consider him quote unquote dead yet is let's take Johnson's, and this is just for pure example. Let's say every war season someone hits them and they lose and lose and lose and lose. And somebody else loses and loses and loses. Eventually, the governments, the membership are going to get tired of losing. So, what are they going to do? They're just going to sign each other because they're quite frankly sick of it. Now you have a bigger sphere. It's going to repeat the process, and you're going to be back to bipolar or tripolarity. As far as right now, everybody's acting in interest of one or two different kind of alliances, maybe three. I guess you have the argument for tripolarity right now.
I
Syndicate,
think tripolarity would probably be the most reasonable way of putting it.
Syndicate,
Bipolarity,
KKR.
bipolarity is inevitable. Yeah, I'm basically in that camp that given enough time, uh, the world sort of collapses into basically two spheres. It's the state of least. It's the state of least resistance. It's the lowest energy state of of a system of a geopolitical system is bipolarity.
Now, the best part about all of that is, well, not the best, the worst part about all of that. The spheres that are going to come out on top are going to be the two spheres that realize it is collapsing and they're just signing each other, and they'll become, the powerhouse for quite a while. Um, I have my bets on who that will end up being because of the history of the game, but we'll see. I would like to be proven wrong. That's right. Um, Anyway, as far as what is a minisphere,
I don't think there's a rigorous definition of a mini sphere as such. It's a political as opposed to an actual numeric term. A mini sphere is
yes,
whatever it's politically a mini sphere is whatever is politically convenient for it to be.
that's actually the perfect way to say it. In my personal opinion, though, if I would have to say what's a minisphere, I'd find something between like maybe clock, but at that point they're getting up there too at this as big as the others. So
I,
I
I
don't.
think I think it'd be best to describe the system as at three or more spheres with roughly diffuse power and no interconnected, no overlapping alliances. So basically, that you aren't caught. Those three spheres are acting independently of each other, or however many are acting independently of each other, are capable of either working in small groups, um, against each other without dragging the others in. It's more of a system than a rigorous numeric definition.
But yes, the flaw thinking that will end up with belief that teenagers with the attention span of goldfish. True, they do care about the browser in between attention. Okay, so I see what you're saying there, but I would argue the flaw in your thinking, Egglet, uh, is the people who are making the decisions and the ones who are proactively going to be the ones who can make the changes, back to popularity or whatever, or keep it from it, are the people who do care about the nations and they do care about losing because they're the ones in government who are spending not 2 minutes clicking a day. If it was up to the member base, yeah, no one gives a goddamn holler who if they win or lose at the base level, the base player. But that's not who's making the decisions. You have your hyperactive player base making the decisions, and they do care.
The less they care, the less likely they're gonna be sticking around long term in the game, anyways.
Exactly. I'm actually on your note, Voss. I don't. It's hard. I would like to see more, like, not just because of mystery, like our original size pre when Camelot was still included. Actually, I thought that was a really good sphere size that people should have aimed for, but I don't think we're ever going to see true minispheres because in order for that to happen, um, the game has to kind of shuffle all the treaties because it's not going to matter if someone's got a big advantage. Is it truly minispheres? Because then they're just going to always win. Um, because the whole game is now is you shouldn't team up. The meta is trying to shift to, oh, we don't want spheres teaming up to fight fight a third sphere. It's just not
But the
gonna
thing
work.
is that what's funny about that is those sorts of spheres teaming up is sort of what makes a whole bunch of smaller spheres actually work. Because otherwise people are just gonna it's gonna be a race to the top of who can assemble the largest sphere because you're not allowed to team up with other smaller ones on a sort of on a transactional basis. You have to get them signed to you in order for them to do anything. So I don't know what the goal here is of that setup because if anything, you want those sphere to encourage spheres to team up because then it's transactional. It's short term. Here now you're locking people in from to another sphere for months, um, because you aren't able to just say, hey, we want to go to war, or we think we're at a threat. Let's take care of this, and then we go do our own thing, and then one of us owes each other at the end.
Exactly. That's actually a really good way to put it. Thank you, Rich.
You are welcome. I have made it abundantly clear I'm not a big fan of how many spheres have been implemented, but I have thought about the political theory behind it.
Mm. Blackwater. Okay, so sorry, I pulled up a hate B. Thank you for the chart. And Baku, Baku. I don't know how you want to pronounce that. Credit of or DNN, whatever that is. Um, so Blackwater seems to be the biggest sphere. Really? In the lower tiers, that's
Makes
really
sense after
who do they have in the lower
Oasis
tier?
imploded.
They have Legion, which is a lower tier, and then they have some protectorates, right? That's about it.
Yep.
The Johnsons with the dominance in the 1 to 10 city range.
Yes, everybody beware Johnson.
Johnson
um,
and Johnson.
yeah, and
Yeah,
then
they got
let's
a decent
see.
lower tier, that's it.
So Blackwater wins up until here 21. Goes to clock 21 to 25. But after that, I believe no, Blackwater takes it back at 30. It's a pretty decent fight up there until you get to City 40 plus. And then I mean, those are like each extra person you have at 40 plus is a huge heavy hitter. So those really matter. Actually, this steering is not too bad when you want to, if you want to think of it tripolarity. I actually don't think that's a bad lineup when you look at it for tripolarity, but that's excluding the fact that you have other spheres outside of it. So good for them, I guess. All right. Hey, Lord Tyrion is in here. Do you want to be unmuted, sir, so I can grill you? Voss denied my request earlier. I was sad.
But regardless, I think that again, there's political how things work in theory and how they turn out in practice are sort of what we're seeing now again with this whole minisphere concept is we have for months we've been told that would change up the game by making blocks have to work with each other to take down bigger enemies. I remember other people telling me that right before they, hit us for working together with other blocks. But that's beside the point. Um, but the thing is that there's this um element of as soon as the rubber hits the road and people actually have to make those sorts of hard decisions, they're going to take what's best for their members and their alliance. And often that means increasing the size of the sphere that they're in. That's just how it works. It provides a greater sense of protection.
Yep. Okay. Hello, Lord Tyrion. How are you today?
Hey, how's it going?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm going to start with a very loaded question, so sorry. Uh, why have you these? Okay, how do I want to word this? It's sounding too mean. Um, Because I really, obviously our DMs are private. So this move kind of blatantly goes against what we've talked about in the past, even on this radio show, quite frankly, regarding minispheres. At what point did your mind change?
Yeah, I think the game's getting, it's probably like a pendulum a little bit how the politics swing. I think it's trending towards a stage of more consolidation going forward. Um, Oasis really wasn't viable anymore. I don't think there was a way to salvage it, and so we had to look for a new place to go. And like I said, I think the consolidation is where things are trending. So we just had to find the best fit for us since Oasis wasn't going to be able to be an entity any longer.
What I'm getting from that is that I'm not even, I can't blame you for doing the political calculus on it, but it does feel a bit cowardly, especially in the wake of what you have spoken about on, the last time we talked. What, a month ago?
Mhm.
Was there a question with that, or what do you mean?
Sorry.
So,
Go ahead,
I
sorry.
think I've noted this, but in the wake of what you have said in previous radio shows, including with me, would you consider your move to be hypocritical?
I could see people feeling that way, yeah, because I mean, I'll be honest. This is a trend against mini spheres, which is where we were pushing previously, but it just didn't seem like that was going to be viable much longer. It felt like the bigger blocks kept getting bigger and stronger, and harder for the smaller blocks to be able to make it. It's even when Oasis had TFP. I mean, we were still our options for a 1v1 were very limited. We get a lot of flack for jumping in with another sphere every time we have a war. People thinking we're trying to do dog piles, or it just didn't leave us a lot of political options in wars, to either join in with another sphere as a dog pile, or no option to 1v1 anybody and be able to win. And so I just think, looking at the political landscape, it's really hard for a smaller sphere to make it. We are really seeing power centralized around a smaller number of alliances and blocks. So I think that's where the game's trending. I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking at probably 4 blocks when it's all said and done, in the near future.
Mhm.
So
I can't
you are in
disagree with
agreement
you.
with me that let's just talk about it. Since it's been brought up in the chat, we are basically in agreement that minispheres as a concept are dead. At least in fact, if not in principle, in fact, if not principle.
Yeah, I mean, it feels that way. Yep.
Okay. I just want to address that since it came up in the chat a bit.
Yeah,
I can't
and
just.
that's
Oh,
fair,
sorry.
because like I said, I was one of the bigger proponents of mini spheres before it really started turning that way.
So
Like I
what
said,
do you think went wrong? So we all talked about how we're going to consolidate, how everything's going to consolidation, but that's an effect. What do you think went wrong that caused everyone to go that way?
probably, I mean, from the PR
I mean,
standpoint,
everyone was out here. I remember, I've been on Morph Radio where I was the only one saying anything bad about this whole idea, and everyone was supposed to be on board with minispheres. So what went wrong?
yeah, I mean, I think part of it was the PR side. Like I said, anytime, at least from our standpoint, anytime we worked with another group, people always made it seem something that it wasn't. Oh, their Oasis was a rose shill and always doing what they said, or hey, they only jump in for dog piles. We always, like I said, we were always forced to either stand out of wars because we can't win a 1v1, or work with somebody and then get railed politically by people complaining about us working with another sphere, and then obviously the secret treaty, public treaty stuff. I mean, it just kind of got to be a lot of messy politics that, at least from my seat, kind of made things challenging. But then on the flip side, you do see some of these bigger spheres continue to get bigger. You see how big Clock has gotten and how big Blackwater's gotten, and the natural response for other spheres is going to be to try to match that. And so they're slowly always grabbing another alliance here or there, and the power just gets bigger and bigger into these major blocks, to where if you're not one of them, you don't have the numbers, and you're always at risk at getting jumped on a 1v1 against anybody if you're not among the top group. And so, like I said, I think there's generally 3 or 4 blocks that can hang, and then everyone else is kind of left hoping that they don't get picked on, or they find allies. And so it makes it really hard for more than, like I said, 3 or 4 blocks to be viable in that dynamic. If you had like 8 to 10 blocks where the power was a lot more spread
Yeah,
out.
but
I think
what makes you think 8 to 10 blocks would end any differently than what we were up to 6 for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would probably ultimately turn back to consolidation naturally, but I think it would be less threatening with a lot more. If any block didn't hold more than 15% of the power, 15 to 20% maybe at most. I don't know, just
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree
I-
with you there. Where if it didn't work with 6 blocks, it's not gonna work with 10.
no, yeah, I don't disagree. I just think it. Go ahead.
The incentives are the same. The incentives are the same regardless of if you have 10 blocks or 6 blocks or 5 blocks. Everyone's thinking the same way.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I think if the more blocks there are, though, you do have more options, and you don't have anyone as large, maybe looking as threatening.
I think I'm kind of in disagreement. I think it just delays the inevitable.
Sure, no, that's
So I got a question here. If consolidation is the trend, why not bring along the other alliances you were tied to previously, UPN, Dark Brotherhood, and the like? Did they just disagree with that move, and so you decided to part ways, or are they planning to move somewhere else? So what's going to go on with them?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where they'll go. The trend towards consolidation, I guess I was just speaking out of my own opinion. That wasn't something we necessarily talked with all of Hollywood about, as far as an overall thing. That was just kind of my own take on it. But yeah, I mean, we were just looking for a home for ourselves, and they're doing the same. Whether they go to one of the major blocks or try something smaller, I guess we'll wait and see. But I suspect if they don't join one of those larger blocks, they will find themselves vulnerable. Like.
So
I just think it's naturally. Sorry.
So
Yeah,
why didn't they just go with you if they're in this vulnerable position now? Which they clearly are.
Yeah,
It's not a good position
it kind of comes off that you and TFP sort of left them up a creek without a paddle.
Yeah, I mean, once TFP left, Oasis, we kind of all agreed that Oasis as it wasn't going to be viable anymore.
So did you do anything, you or TFP, because this all happened within what, 72 hours?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't seem like much time was or consideration was given to the other allies in Oasis.
Yeah, I mean, we told them a few days ago that we were going to be looking for other places to go, and that they should do the same. And that was a few days after TFP left, so we were just kind of evaluating that situation.
Well, TFP didn't leave. Like, there wasn't a couple days to warn them. It was like 3 days ago when TFP left.
Yeah, so that's actually something I want to continue on because we have a pretty good rapport, but and I like Val Vass as well, but you both, in a way, not you're fucking over your friends basically, and I can understand eventually wanting to leave, but you've worked with Oasis member leadership for I don't know what's it been 2 years now.
Oasis wasn't that old, I don't think. Maybe a
Almost a year and a
year.
half.
Yeah, it's got to be at least a year and a
Has it
half.
been that long? Jeez.
Yeah, it's been long.
Yeah.
I remember when the swamp ended. That was, yeah.
So basically, I mean, in 3 days, I don't see the huge rush really for you to
Yeah, it's not like
jump
you were gonna go
ship.
to war within, that short of.
So I
Well,
feel
it was more that the word was getting around about us joining Hollywood. I mean, it was kind of out there, so we want to get ahead of the messaging on it, just address rumors and everything by just go ahead and
Yeah,
making
but
it
you didn't
public.
like. You. I think one person mentioned, like normally you would give like a 72 or something like that, and it just seemed that to happen. One day I wake up and Oasis exists, that I go to sleep, and the next day it's completely gone.
magic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we, like I said, we told them about 3 days ago that we were going to be looking elsewhere. I even told them yesterday that we were joining Hollywood for sure. And I asked them tonight, are you guys, do you guys want us to wait another day or two to announce the treaties, or are you guys good now? And they were fine with it being now. So,
Oh,
an extra day wasn't going to really do much for that situation. The rest of the blocks aren't built up. I don't see anybody looking to jump on them here because of that. So, but they felt that would be all right to just go ahead and do it now. So it was communicated to them. They were okay and signed off on us go ahead and posting tonight. Otherwise, we would have waited another day or two.
So your discussion from start to finish to join Hollywood took less than 3 days.
Yeah,
That's impressive.
we've had a great
the most
relationship with them. We talk to them all the time. Our embassy with them is one of the most active all the
good.
time. And I told them before, we were wanting to work with them on something. It wasn't necessarily being a member of Hollywood, but um, when I approached them a few days ago, they said they were actually just potentially looking at an addition. Started to have that conversation internally, and so when we came to the door, they were ready and open and able to run with that right away as far as determining if we would be a good fit or not. So it was a relatively quick and easy process. I think a day and a half for them to give us the yes after we talked to them, and so yeah, it went pretty quick.
Okay. Do hmm. Do you how do I want to word this question? So obviously TFP, from what I understand, that kind of came out of nowhere for you, right? Like the new
Yep, more
person
or less.
took over, and it was like kind of complete shock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I talked to my gut. So we were getting approached by I won't even name who, but there was other blocks that wanted TI to join us because they saw the Way leave, they saw IKEA leave, they were wondering if Oasis was going to stick around, so they were inviting us to join their block, and so I talked to my high gov, and this was probably about a week and a half ago. Talked to my high gov like, hey, you guys want to explore something else? Should we stick in Oasis? And it was unanimous. Everybody wanted to stick with TFP and try to build Oasis further. And then obviously TFP did that, and that kind of forced our hand to then proceed elsewhere.
Okay, fair enough. Um, I think the shock everybody to be honest, but whatever. Um, so the takeaway I'm really getting is, you think we're going to be back on the verge of reconsolidating? I mean, you definitely help push us in that direction at the very least. Um,
Blaney
it
Vaz has a
makes
question.
what?
I have a question for Tyrion, it says.
Who?
Blaney.
Hey, Decagon, I've been paying attention to the chat.
Go
Go ahead.
ahead. Sorry, I missed it. I was semi paying attention.
I hope you pay more attention to the road.
I don't.
How do you feel your arrival in Hollywood will set them up for the future? Do you think it makes them more attractive?
More attractive for what?
Typing. Probably just unmute Blaney. I don't know if he has mic.
Future edition. So, what they're trying, yeah.
I don't know. You know, I look at the tiering charts now, and I think the top three are relatively close.
Yeah, but
I
that may
haven't.
drive further consolidation because someone's trying to get that edge on another.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't, like, we just joined the Hollywood server hours ago, and I've been too busy to even really do much in there. So I don't know what the strategic direction is with the rest of the group yet. I would imagine no more additions right now, but if everyone else starts adding, maybe, you know, I think every group wants to be maybe cautious not to be too far out in front with the numbers, because then you start getting the hegemony talk and everything else. But I think it's relatively
I
balanced at
think
the top
everyone
right
needs to dispense. If I hear hegemony one more time being
now.
used as a slur, I will gouge someone's eyes out.
Yeah, I
Swear
hate
to
it
God.
because I'm always like, if two spheres can beat one, it's not an issue. You know, that's my take on it. You know, the only time it's an issue when it takes half the game to beat the other half. You know, and but if a couple alliances can sit on the sidelines and a couple other spheres can sit on the sidelines and two other spheres can wipe out the biggest, I don't think it's an issue at all. Yeah, so I
There
mean that
any
chart you posted there, I mean it's relatively balanced, and I think some of those smaller blocks could jump in and tip the tide either way, you know, in a close war.
fair enough.
Johnson's got that low tier.
Yes, we will. All right. Is there any other questions for Tyrion from the crowd at all?
So regarding what Decagon says, well, I think I noted this earlier, but if those spheres are able of acting independently from each other, I think that that's fine. If it's in effect two spheres, then that's not fine.
Yeah, if it's a 2v1, it would be really bad for the game.
Well,
I just don't
it's
see it
not
going down to
the whole
three.
2v1 thing that concerns me. Three spheres that are able of acting independently. That's perfectly okay. If one is able to set out from a war and let the other two 1v1, that's fine. If it's if two is required to beat one in a three sphere configuration, I am concerned that that would be a problem. Again, as I've said on basically every radio show that I've been on, it's not the number of spheres that matters; it's the diffusion of power that matters. You can have 10 spheres, of which 4 of them have one side agreement and 3 of them have another side agreement, and you basically it's those spheres exist. That number only exists in the heads of people. It's really at that point it's really just 3 spheres.
Very true.
We got Kev here to rep the Johnsons.
Yeah, not really. Okay, so last chance. Any more questions for Firewolf? Wow, I just read his name off the last person.
Oh
Any
my,
last
Rip.
questions
yes.
for Lord Tyrion, or no? You got about 30 seconds. Yeah, exactly. In the end, it's always gonna boil what's best for me, what's best for my alliance. In the end, the people are gonna say screw the game. Well, screw the rest of the game, I guess you could say. And
Yeah,
I
people
can't
respond to
blame them.
incentives.
You can't blame them. You're always gonna want to do what's best for you. Your alliance first, though.
People are, yeah. I think any leader would would be derelict in their duty if they didn't. In some misplaced crusade to do what's best for the game and run their alliance into the dirt. You do what's best for the people for the reason why you're in power, basically.
I see what you're saying, Professor. That is very seldom true. What's best for the Alliance is generally never what's best for the game.
I mean, I think
um,
the game will adapt to what the alliance does. You know, if someone does a move, there's always going to be a counter move.
I think we were actually touching base on this before you actually showed up, but my big problem with the way how things can snap back really quickly, um, isn't isn't snapping back. It's how if it's not careful, it can completely cause a huge an actual hegemony, very easily. For example, let's say Hollywood and Rose are just for examples, by the way, don't want to really consolidate much, but let's say Blackwater says, "Yeah, let's all consolidate." And people just flood to Blackwater. You could really end up with a huge problem.
It's it's what would it be? It's a Nash equilibrium where I think the best example from today. There's actually a great example of it from today. The Chargers Raiders football game. Both of them stand to win if they. Both of them will make the playoffs if they tie.
So,
But the thing is that everyone wants to win. So I mean, you have different incentives. That's sort of the position we're in, where everyone wants to win the game, even if that may not be the most interesting position to be in.
yeah, quote quote win, but yeah. So that's my big concern with the way snapping back, going back to consolidation, is all it takes is for one sphere to really say, "I'm open to it. I don't care." And we could have a huge, huge like multi-year problem on our hands that isn't fixable. But that's my take on that. It doesn't seem anybody else had any more questions. For you, Tyrion. I do appreciate you unmuting.
Thanks.
You're free to stick around. I am, and not forcing it. When are you launching? Um, God, 2029. We're gonna do 2029.
As I said, it could have been his alliance. Camelot could have been Azazel's alliance if he just coup Epi when I told him to.
Mistakes.
You should have listened to me.
Well, it could for me.
Oh, that's right. We played Among Us last night. I'm like, I forgot where that joke even came from. Has the novelty worn off yet? Of what? Oh. So I disagree. I think the game is interesting enough. I mean, yeah, it can
Right
get
here.
dull at times, but obviously we're all tuned in. I mean, I do the radio show. I tune into other people's. I think the different perspectives and takes on one different scenario is what makes the game so interesting. The act itself might be dull, but I like the way people play it out and how they politicize it. I think that's what makes the game interesting. If you look at things at such a like, I don't know what's a good way. It's just the box, and don't look outside of it. You're obviously never gonna have fun, or quote unquote fun. Kev, you keep talking. I will unmute you just because. Hello, Kev. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. So you're the official rep for Johnson's, correct?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Hmm.
Okay. What can we be expecting from Johnson's next?
Well, I think there's going to be some new additions to the block.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think when you take a peek at the political landscape, I think when people are trying to puzzle piece um, who's going after who, or what makes sense, or what's the official CB going to be like. I think this is the first time in game history where we have a hegemony in the Johnsons not being targeted, and I think I think a lot that's attractive to a lot of people. So I think there's going to be a lot of alliances joining that block.
Think UPN and Dark Brotherhood gonna join them?
Unknown. I think that's. I'm sure they're every alliance is interested in joining, right? So I'm sure there's vigorous tests trying to figure out if that's a good fit. I know TFP we had to kill a block in order to get in. I know TFP just killed Oasis, just defeated Oasis Baskin. So I mean, it's kind of like a Sparta thing, right? You got to go out and kill a wolf as a kid in order to get in, kind of situation. So yeah, if someone can accomplish a certain task, then yeah, maybe they have a chance in getting into the Johnsons.
Hmm. Now, with the Johnsons becoming all powerful, the hegemony, as you say, um, where do we sign on?
To the Johnsons, just drop me a DM and I'll get things started for you.
Okay. Now, is this how you convinced Eric to blow up his block? That's a joke, everybody. It's not actually his fault.
No, so
For legal purposes.
yeah,
Don't sue us, please.
Yeah, Valeni actually, I think, deserves credit for a lot of wonderful things, including but not limited to the wonderful position that the Johnsons finds itself in, because he gave indication that would be a decent backup plan for TFP to go into, and obviously that planted a wonderful seed. Why would that even be a backup plan? I don't know if Valeni was thinking that should be the primary plan. So Eric, took that and thought, let's do it, baby. We're going to use that. That's going to be the main plan. And I mean, and he had wisdom and he pushed forward. So it's good. Proud of him.
All right. I have a new FA plan, and you're not going to believe it. We're going to, but hold on. We're not just going to leave. We got to make sure everything implodes around us.
I was about to say we're the largest member of the block. Us leaving would make sure everything implodes around us.
Right, but we're gonna give absolutely no notice, right? We're just gonna say tomorrow we're leaving, and then we're gonna sign the Johnsons in a couple hours, if they'll have us.
I thought we were signing Blackwater. That's what you told me.
Shh. Shh.
So here's the thing, George. When you make your alliance here, I think it'd be a good idea for you to join the Johnsons, and then the only thing is you'll have to do something just magnificent in order to gain entry, and then yeah, just drop me a link. Just drop me a DM. We can talk.
But I can't make my alliance until QE decides to make it with me, and he
That's
says
fair.
he's stuck in Legion.
Well, Legion should join too.
Oh, that's a good one. We'll get Legion, mining QE's new alliance that will come in 2025. And then aren't you like in like another alliance too? Bring them.
Zaz, you're forgetting something. A bit of news that happened.
But
how did the Aurora Breakaway Alliance go?
there's an Aurora Breakaway alliance.
Remember when Pepper and who else?
Oh, you mean the one that merged into Voodoo?
Yes, that one. The one that lasted like 3 days.
I mean, that was the plan the whole time. I mean, you can look in their
obviously
DOE thread and right.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like, hey, more power to them wanting to do something different. And I mean, Vice is a fun guy to be around. So yeah.
If I
Hmm?
were, there's very few people I'd actually end up going to an alliance with. I think Vice would be one of the ones where I could definitely see myself joining. He seems like a fun crowd. Um, Rose is obviously on my list. I like Cataclysm. I enjoy the community stuff you guys do.
You say you like Cataclysm? I may have to fire you, Zaz.
I like them as a community. I was playing Among Us with them yesterday.
Yes,
I
I
like
know.
when alliances are able to do that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. But politically no. Yeah, but I told Kev I wanted to join Kata just off the flag. Oh, I don't even know what their flag looks like, so um
It's just it's a
No,
picture of Richard Simmons doing a jumping jack. It's pretty nice.
ooh,
I'm sad that Kev stopped poaching me.
Who
no
is
one
it?
coaches me.
It's
Who is it?
Raya.
Uriah.
Uriah? Oh, you changed your name. Yeah. Well,
How
you
could
did.
you-
I
I
just said
I
the
was
successfully
say, how
fox.
did you not recognize it?
What? Oh, it just says the fox. It's
I
and
know,
you used
but
to have an
that's the
orange fox.
Uriah here. He.
Changed that a while ago, actually, in
Oh.
here. I don't remember why.
Oh. But
Okay, Alexa.
yeah. You said trying to poach you. I successfully poached you before.
It's Soup Kitchen, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
So,
it did
real
take
quick,
a
will I
collapsing
actually have
alliance
you
for me to
because
leave.
you are a notable player who knows politics. What is your opinion on the TI move?
Objectively or like in character? How do you want me to answer this?
In character, objectively. That goes on note that I don't know if you heard it, but Tyrion is saying he firmly believes we're moving into a pro consolidation period of time in the game.
Tyrion said that?
Yeah.
I don't.
Yes.
Huh. Interesting. I personally I liked the move. I think it made sense. I mean, in character. Hold on. I'm looking at it out of character. In character, nah. In character, it'd be TFP Johnson's ranting, and I would just say how good the Johnsons are. So I think it'd be more interesting if I just gave the out of character. I think
But
it
it'd be
makes
more
sense.
exciting to give you to do the Johnson's ranting.
Is it? Maybe I'll do that later, but I think it makes sense if you think about it. Like him going to Hollywood, so now they're on par or close to Blackwater, or they're about the same size as Blackwater. Um, like it covers the lower tier. They cover the lower tier now, right? So like that helps TKR, that helps name withheld and some Black Knights. So I think that gives them more like meat in the lower and mid tier. I think it was a pretty smart move because now like they can try to make the argument, hey, we're not consolidating so much. Look at Blackwater, look at these other blocks, et cetera, et cetera. I thought Rose was going to make a bigger push to get them, right? Just because like if you look at their allies, I mean like Rose itself is the size of a block just in of itself, the one alliance. But um, yeah, I think it was a smart choice. I think if you look at the personnel too, I think that it makes more sense them going to Hollywood than Rose, just with how Hollywood is run versus how Rose is run. And if you know how Tyrion is, and if it's true that he is looking to retire, it makes more sense for him to go to Hollywood because Rose likes to. It makes sense if you look at their allies, but they like to micromanage a little bit more, which I get just due to their situation. Where in Hollywood, I think they're maybe going to be a little bit more nurturing, and I think that probably had something to do with him joining Hollywood. Um, I think it would have been hilarious if he joined Mystery Inc. That would have been fun. And then they could have just, I don't know. Did you guys invite him, George?
Well, you do realize this whole like thing happened within like hours, right? Like apparently he signed to Hollywood in a day and a half worth of talk. So I had gone to bed. TFP imploded. Our TFP had imploded Oasis. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And by the time like I had finished the working day for like context of time frame, apparently he had already discussed and gotten agreement by Hollywood.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that, as I've said earlier in the show, anyone who mentions the term hegemony or consolidation deserves, and says it like they are doing it, should have their keyboards confiscated.
That's what we will all be using next war, I'm sure. Don't worry. Well, maybe not next war. Next war might actually play out to be somewhat fair. Depending on what it is. Okay, so yeah, but that surprised you a little bit when I told you that Tyrion went pro consolidation.
Well,
It,
it's again hypocrisy.
I'm
It,
addressing
it
a
may
guess,
very well be I
sir.
totally um believe him that it's the best decision for Ti.
Sir,
However, it's
directed
um
Dirk Gev.
it is hypocritical on his part, especially him going, yeah, we need to do, mini spheres, and we need to have more, more spheres, what, a month ago, and then pull this. It just feels disingenuous.
Right. I would say yeah. Him using that as a CB. Here, I'll go back in character. Here you go. So him using it as a CB is pretty silly to then say that he's pro consolidation or making it a bipolar world. Is that what you're saying? He's saying. I don't know. I wasn't around, so maybe I shouldn't give my opinion on this. But you did ask. So if that is the case, it sounds a little strange because he entered in a war or two in the name of microspheres or minispheres.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, he's still unmuted, so he's able to rebut however he wants. But, I mean, he pretty blatantly said he doesn't really think miniseries are viable anymore, and we're moving towards consolidation.
I mean, in a way, he's come around to the same position I've held for a long time, just as an observational thing. It's just that I never held the whole mini spheres are the end all be all of making this game interesting. So at least I'm not a hypocrite about it.
Well, I don't want to call him a hypocrite. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard because I can see your perspective can obviously change, but I mean that was a really quick change. No offense, Taryn. I'm sorry. It's just like we talked about this just a month ago, and you're like, "Yes, miniseries, yay!" And I feel like today you're just like, "Oh, fuck miniseries." um,
So is that the official position of Hollywood then? Is that they're against minispheres?
Well, it's the official.
This
It's the
this is
official position of Tyrion. I kind of. It's a radio show. None of us are really speaking on behalf of our alliances or blocks.
I feel like are you maybe are we putting words in his mouth here? I didn't hear him say anything, so I don't want to. You know what I mean?
I'm working as close as what I could say. He did say. Um, yes, he said it was my own opinion. Um, uh, that the pendulum is going back that way.
Oh, he's just like an observation. He might not be saying that's what he wants. He's just maybe saying that that's his observation.
Oh,
Well, here's the thing: is I think that's wrong either way. If it's what he wants, something else, and then I don't think that's the way it's going either, though. Because I feel like if you look at it now, if you look at there's 4 solid actual spheres right now, more than 4. But like if you're looking objectively on the meta landscape, like there's 4 solid spheres.
I
5,
mean,
6
what?
include Mystery Inc. and Johnson's.
But when was it that on other before this is like, well, we have 6 solid spheres and that will help prevent it. Now it's like we have 4 solid spheres and all at the same time we are we're kind of all saying the same thing over and over again and nothing changes.
Nothing changes. What do you mean by that?
Well, like we're going through the same cycle of, well, we have four, we had 6 solid spheres, roughly evenly matched. We had some wars. We have 5 solid spheres, and every single time, we're just counting down till we have 2 again, and then
but real quick, I actually am interested to hear Kevin's perspective on this. So let's let him go off on his opinion real quick.
What's that?
You were
On the mic,
you
huh?
you said you don't feel it's going in that direction, and you started
No,
explaining why, and then
like
you got kind of
yeah, no, yeah. I would say like look at the last two globals for goodness sake. I mean, like that's microspheres in a nutshell. Like that's kind of like what look at Surfs Up like right before NPO LT because NPO like said that they're committing to microspheres too, and they pulled what they pulled. But and then that's why we did like or that's why Surfs Up ended up happening and all that crap. And then obviously what happened with the long war and then getting back to where we wanted to be, which is where we're at now, which is the microspheres. So, or mini spheres. And sure, we're maybe at 4, but that was due to different blunders. And I think as new alliances come, like there's a couple of newer ones that are doing okay. Like Voodoo just picked up those little fellers, right? From Toxic and whatever, and then you got some other decent like new coming alliances. And I feel like more and more there's like better military alliances instead of just the normal like TKR is competent at fighting. You had Rose. I mean, you've got Syndicate, etc. Like, but now you've got newer alliances in those categories that can actually lead a sphere and can actually pull strings and make some kind of impact politically and militarily. And so I feel like that's the reason why minispheres was hard for things to happen. Sure, human nature wanting to like just pile up into two sides, but I think the bigger reason is because there was a lack of ambition and a lack of resources to be able to pull the strings and lack of know-how to be a political player.
fair enough. Um, I honestly I think reconsolidation is inevitable. When it happens, I don't know. Um, I don't know. I wouldn't. Would I say? I can see where you're coming from for sure, but we definitely. It's an interesting way you put it. I'll have to think of that more.
I think the incentive structure as it stands does favor consolidation. I think it was, you know, it's human nature to want to win, even though this is technically in the long term an unwinnable game. I think the incentive structure incentivizes wanting to team up and pick fights that that aren't seal clubbing as defined as some people, but definitely ones that are slanted in your favor.
Game. How many people will in the game? Power can be defined as reputation. I mean, it depends on what type of power you're just talking about,
Soft
really.
power, hard power, you know.
And then, I mean, I meant more like, what's your goal? Are you trying to like powers and like playing strings? Or you mean pure like military power of an alliance?
That's the difference between soft and hard
Oh
power, Silver.
yes. You know what? All right. um. So I mean, I guess it really depends on what you mean. Reputation. I wouldn't even say has any part of power. I know a lot of people who are very reputable in the game, but they couldn't pull anything off um, at all. No, I'm not gonna name. It's pretty easy, you know.
Especially since you
Uh,
put it in caps, you won't name names.
yeah, I mean, you gotta go through a list of every reputable member of the game. Just pick pretty much anybody who is in. Hey, CCT. Everybody likes CCT. CCT. Go start global war. What's next? Within the, you know.
Yar starts
Um.
the next global.
So my whole
That
point
shit
is
on your name. You said
reputation isn't really a good factor for power. I think it really comes down to alliances and your. I think soft power it doesn't really exist. I think it's all hard power. Because especially when you go to another alliance or and you're like, hey, do you want to do this? If they don't think you can pull it off, they're not going to work with you
but I
regardless,
think
right?
I think there's an element of soft power involved.
Maybe, but it's minor.
I,
At
I
the
don't
end of
think
the
it,
day,
I don't think it matters as much as soft power does in the real world, but I think there is an element of soft power involved.
okay, yeah, okay, that's a good point. Okay, being reputable is good, so having the soft power is good, but you need the hard power to back it up.
If people think you can, if people think you can pull something off, if or weasel your way out of a tight situation, even without using military power, that's soft power. It's
Kind of
literally referenced in the name of the game.
kind of also need that soft power in order to gain the hard power in the first place.
Yep.
It's an element of it.
A little bit, yeah. But I mean, you can recruit from what's it called, organically too. I think
I mean,
soft
that
power.
organic recruiting is in its own right a type of soft power if you're able to
Right.
recruit.
Okay, but I'm gonna cut off the extra radio show here, everybody. It's been about an hour, so I don't want to keep it going and beat topics to death with a baseball bat. Thank you for stopping by. If you want to stay, chat, you can. I will unmute people who stay. We'll see you next week.